The European gas prices have once again risen to record highs on Thursday as fears over Russian supplies peak. The prices have spiked in recent days as a three-day halt in Russian deliveries to Germany via the Nord Stream 1 pipeline approaches. The biggest fear that Moscow will not turn the taps back on afterwards remains very real. In countries like France and Germany, one-year forward contracts for electricity prices have risen to record highs as worry over the winter energy crunch continues to nag. Meanwhile, reports have also emerged that Russia is in fact burning off very large amounts of natural gas. And this is the Portovaya LNG plant that is located near the Finland border. And it is burning an estimated $10 million worth of gas every day. And experts say that the gas that is being burnt, which some experts claim is almost about 4.34 million cubic meters of gas, would previously have been exported to countries in Europe like Germany and France. The scientists are also worried that the soot from this flare could actually impact the Arctic ice. While burning of gas is common at processing plants, it's normally done for technical or for safety reasons. The scale of this burn has actually puzzled a lot of experts. Gazprom is yet to comment on the reports of the prolonged flare. Meanwhile, all eyes are on the U.S. Federal Reserve's Chief Jerome Powell's speech that is due later in the day today. He's expected to reiterate the message that the Fed will continue to hike interest rates to try and bring down inflation. This of course, seems to be a big problem which world leaders are looking at. The central banks around the world are trying to find a very delicate balance between curbing inflation and avoiding a recession. The challenge has been compounded this year by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which has sent energy and food prices skyrocketing. All right, now to give us more insights in terms of what's exactly happening in Germany at this point of time, we're being joined by our correspondent Trent Murray, who's joining us live from Berlin. Trent, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on this broadcast from WION. Now, the question that I want to ask you is, now Russia has said that it will be shutting down Nord Stream 1 for a period of 3 days for maintenance work. Now, there is a fear that Russia may not turn back the tap on of Nord Stream 1. How widespread is this fear?
Well, that is the number one concern, I think, of government officials here in Berlin, that this maintenance could be a pretext for the pipeline being switched off completely. Now, it's really important to note in all of this that, of course, when you have a pipeline, there are two ends of it. And on the German end, they say that their technical readings show that the pipeline doesn't need any maintenance. In fact, this maintenance window of 3 days, plus the previous one of 10 days, was done purely for maintenance sake. They say it's a political move to try and put pressure on Germany over its support of Ukraine. And so that is why there is this now nationwide effort to try and conserve energy, to try and get gas into the storage for the winter, because I think there is a very real realization, if you will, that when the weather turns and the sun goes and it starts to get really cold, that President Vladimir Putin may just well switch off the pipeline entirely to really try and pile the pressure on not just Germany, but neighbouring European countries.
Absolutely indeed. And also, Trent, one of the other major concerns, which I'm pretty sure countries within Europe, including Germany and France, will be looking at, is what is happening at this plant, which goes by the name Portovaya. And it is close to the border with Finland. And here we're given to understand that the LNG gas is actually being burnt by Russia to the tune of almost about 4.3 million metric units. Now, this is gas that would have actually come to Europe if Russia had not been burning it at its end. How is Europe looking at this?
Yeah, well, this is a really important issue because the question of exporting fossil fuels from Russia to Europe has really been a controversial topic amongst European lawmakers because, of course, the flip side of it all is that when you've got record prices for gas and coal and oil, that Russia is benefiting from this financially in taking in huge sums of cash. And so the accusation has been at times that countries like Germany and France may be actually helping bankroll the war effort in some ways for the Russian side, which of course goes completely against their public position of supporting Kyiv. So of course there are calls for Germany, as one example, to try and boycott Russian gas entirely, to not use it, like other fossil fuels. But the concern is, of course, if they do that, where else do they get the gas from? There really are no other alternatives right now, and so that's when you have this issue of shortages. So they really are stuck between a rock and a hard place from a government perspective.
Absolutely, indeed, stuck between a rock and a hard place. Now, the question that I want to ask you, Trent, is the fact is the war in Ukraine has gone on for over 6 months now. European Union has, in fact, in a calibrated manner, increased the sanctions that it has imposed on Russia, but still, many countries in Europe depend on Russian gas to heat up during winter. Winter is about 3-4 months away. How is Europe actually trying to, in some ways, prepare itself for the possibility that the war will drag on and Russia will turn off its gas tap?
Yeah, well, I mean, to borrow a phrase from a famous TV show, winter is coming, and I think all Europeans know that. And so there is this effort now to try and basically not use as much energy right now to minimise electricity generation from gas, so the gas can instead be sent to the storage for the winter. But the big issue with all of this, of course, is bills are just skyrocketing. Here in France, in the United Kingdom, we've just seen the price cap risen significantly by 80%. And so there is real concern about whether people will be able to afford to heat their homes in the winter. If we have a really bitterly cold winter with sub-zero temperatures, you could have a situation where people from low and middle incomes backgrounds have to make a decision about whether to switch on the heating or not to warm their family, because if they do, they may not be able to afford to pay the bill. So these are extraordinarily tough times, I think, for Europe, and I think they're worried about what may be coming. And it is just also a very real example of how, while that war in Ukraine may be, over 1,000 kilometres away from where I am, the knock-on effect is certainly now starting to ripple across the European continent from a humanitarian perspective and an economic perspective.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Trent Murray, for joining us and getting us all those insights there from Berlin. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.